unmute. Try that. Okay, that should have unmuted me. Hopefully you can hear me now. Are you hearing me now? Still no sound. I'm doing fine, thank you, Richard. Could you tell me, have I got voice now? There's still no sound. Interesting. Okay. So my system's saying there's sound. I'm hoping you hear me now. Good. We're hearing me now. Okay, good. Lovely, thank you. So thanks to those of you that are joining me. And quick thing that I want to start off with, DV 2020 and DV 2021. There's no news on that, no news on the appeals. We just have to wait for those appeals to go through. Okay, good. Thank you for all of you that are telling me you can hear. Now let's take some questions. I want to get through the questions fairly quickly. Keep on track so I can answer as many as possible. What's my expectation of the new bulletin for EU? I haven't done any prediction for EU. What I have done is I've explained to people that we're roughly in DV 2024, we're roughly ahead in terms of issuances, but the number of cases scheduled for for the remainder of March and April are not quite as high as they should be. So I'm expecting to see a slight increase in the pace of scheduled cases. That doesn't necessarily translate to an increase in numbers. If you look at some of the bigger embassies, such as Nairobi, etc., you'll see that they are quite significantly behind or getting a little bit more backlogged. And this is what I'd explained on a video maybe a few weeks ago, just before the last visa bulletin. What I'm seeing again is that there isn't a lot of reason for them to be have a very big jump, particularly in Africa. I think that we're sort of still trying to catch up with the numbers we've got. Now, we do have some exceptions to that. There are embassies such as Monrovia, for example, that are right up to the 45,000 numbers, but you've got other embassies which are still in the low 30s, and they haven't got to the 45,000 number range. So we'll have to wait and see. I don't know. I haven't looked at those numbers specifically for EU, but in general, I'm not expecting massive jumps in any of the regions because they're not trying to get to the highest case numbers. They're just simply not trying to get to those highest case numbers, and their issuances are on track right now. So I'm hoping that's clear. Okay. All right. Will the visa bulletin reach Asia 13,000? It probably will. That's a good number, but we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, there's a bit of increasing to go before we get there, right? So it may not be next month or in the next couple of months, but hopefully in 3 months or so, maybe you should get current. Completed DS260 for me and my wife July 1st and got confirmation, which I have our interview next week. Got an email from the embassy saying that I did not include my spouse with respect to completed DS260. It's interesting. This happens a lot more than you would think. It's an odd thing. Sometimes you can see that your DS260 has been completed for both you and the wife, but for whatever reason they can't see the spouse, and sometimes they ask you to fill in the DS260 again. I don't really understand what causes that. But it's not like the first time I've heard of it. So you need to print out evidence of the fact that you submitted the DS260. So go into the DS260 page and print out where it says completed for both of those forms. And if necessary, print off your spouse's DS260 answers so that you can show them and give them the confirmation of all of that data. Okay, you might also want to get to, as you navigate through the DS260, go to the very last page. On the last page, it has a confirmation number for the DS260. So you can write that down for both your number or screenshot it for both your DS260 and for that of your spouse. Okay. How long does one get to utilize the diversity visa to travel with a girlfriend, but after getting a 2NL? That's an interesting one. Okay. you can't take a girlfriend on the diversity visa. You have to, if you've got a girlfriend and you want to include her in the process, you have to marry her. Okay. Um, you can't sponsor or have a derivative that you're not married to, right? So basically, you should have done that before getting current. You should have done that before getting your 2NL. So you've got very little time to do that. You could do it. In some countries, it's culturally acceptable to get married quite quickly. So you could do that, but you'd have to speak to the embassy and see if they'll allow you to add your girlfriend, then spouse, once you're married, once you've got a legal marriage, to your case. But if you don't do that, you've really caused yourself a bit of a headache. There is a way to fix it later, but it's much more costly and time-consuming to add the spouse later. So contact the embassy and see what they say about that, right? Is the case number 9K a high case number of Nepal? No, it's not. You've got no problems, no reason to be questioning, frankly. Bula Vinaka, Mr. Brit Simon. What chances does OC 3500? About the same chance as a snowball would have in the desert. Sorry to be so blunt, but OC 3500 is not going to get current. There's just no reason why that's going to go current. I'm sorry. But it's been very obvious from the beginning that that's not going to happen. There was a 77% increase in the number of people selected in Oceania, the largest increase of any of the regions by percentage. And last year, they didn't use all of the people that they had selected, right? So they had too many people last year, and they added 77% more people this year. So what do you think is going to happen? There's going to be a lot more people that will be left without a visa. That's the only logical explanation. And those people will be in highest case numbers, and yours is one of the highest case numbers. So that's why you've got no chance. Okay. AF46K from Nairobi. I would love to know how Nairobi is performing. Nairobi is performing very good. They gave out 209 2NLs this month, right? So they accepted from KCC 209 cases. That's very good. They're probably going to have to increase that pace. They might have to be doing 250 or even 300 a month to get through the full range, because they are somewhat backlogged behind the 45,000 number. They haven't even reached the 40,000 number yet. So they are doing good. They're doing lots of interviews, but there's a lot of work for them to do at that particular embassy. Okay. We'll have to wait and see whether they can scale up their capacity in order to take more cases. Okay. Is it necessary for all family members to attend the interview, even though they do not want to travel? No, you don't have to take family members that don't want to travel, right? So if you've got, I don't know, an adult, child, let's say 19, 20-year-old child, and that child doesn't want a green card, doesn't want to move to America, and you've all discussed it as a family, and you know what that means, that you'll be separated for long periods of time, all of that, right? If you truly understand what you're doing and you understand how expensive and slow it will be to bring that child to America later on, it's very slow, very expensive. If you truly understand that and you've decided that you don't want that child to travel with you, then there is no need for that child in that scenario to go to the interview with you. Okay. You also didn't need to fill in the DS-260 for that child, right? That child should be listed on your DS-260 and that of your spouse, but you don't need to fill in a DS-260 for someone that isn't traveling. Okay. Major Matata, Hakuna Matata. AF39, we've spoken to you before, I'm sure. Am I still safe up to Nairobi issuing interview schedule up to 35,000? Yeah, absolutely. Nairobi is absolutely going to get way north of 39,000. You'll be fine. DV23, AF50 something in Orlando, watching my kids playing soccer in Ronaldo's soccer academy. Fantastic. That's awesome. That's living the dream, really. I mean, that's just really cool. Thank you for letting me know that. Appreciate it. Good luck. Cairo scheduled 101 cases this month and reached up to the end of 19K case numbers scheduled for Egyptians. I know it's not great, but is it that decent for this month? No, it's not enough. They've slowed down their pace. That 101 is less than the month before. And they've slowed down, and they need to speed up. They needed to speed up even for this month, but they certainly need to speed up now. They've got a lot of work to do. They've got all of the Egyptian cases, which is thousands. They've got all of the, or the majority of the Sudanese cases as well, right? So they've got about 11,000 people assigned to that embassy. If they underfill, it actually helps higher case numbers from other countries. So in a sense, they need to get on with some work because Cairo is a very important embassy in terms of DV lottery issuances. So yeah, I don't know why they reduced their capacity this month. It was not enough. Okay. Why are there no interviews scheduled in Casablanca? I don't know. But I will tell you that Casablanca, well, I do know about Casablanca. They're doing a lot of IR cases right now, which are IR visas are immediate relative visas, which is visas for immediate relatives of US citizens. And that's the key, the last part. It's American citizens who want to bring a spouse or a parent or a child to America. That is the highest category of visa in terms of priority for many of the embassies. And so if you're at an embassy that has got a high number of those, then that embassy might prefer those cases, give priority to those cases above DV. Now, that is the case in Casablanca. That's why certain embassies are slow. That's why Addis is slow. That's why Accra is slow, right? That's exactly what's going on at those embassies. And there's not much we can do about it to change their behavior, but maybe their behavior will change anyway. Hopefully, they will see that they've got a lot of work to do for DV, and DV sunsets on September 30th. And so they hopefully will fix that themselves. And I've got hope for Casablanca because they did so well last year. So, you know, fingers crossed. We'll see in the next month or two. It'll be important to see what they take. Okay. And I have confirmation. I'm confused because they stated my DS260 has been opened. Yeah, okay. So I talked about that before. My concern is with Dakar Embassy, political crisis in Senegal. Yes, I'm aware. No to NL for March and April. Do you think they can schedule cases when the current president transfer power on the 2nd of April? When there's political instability in a country, it creates a dangerous situation, and often the US embassy will reduce the number of staff that are at that embassy. They'll move to a lower staffing profile so that they can focus the resources they've got on protecting that smaller number of people. They've done that before, right? When those things happen, it tends to take time for that embassy to sort of get back up to speed later on. So it can impact an embassy for quite some time. And, you know, even if it's fixed on the 2nd of April, I don't think we'll see an immediate change back to a high-performing embassy immediately after that. And I don't necessarily think it's entirely to do with when the president is installed either, because is the country going to be immediately peaceful at that point? I don't know. It seems unlikely, but we'll have to wait and see. But in the meantime, yes, there is some risk for Senegalese applicants because of that. Okay. And then talking as Sudanese, we just talked about Cairo. You have, if you're selected as a Sudanese national living in Egypt, you're living in Egypt. That's the point. You're assigned to the Cairo embassy. So you have a chance, but it depends on your case number. If your case number is very high, then you've got very, very little chance of your case becoming current. So it depends on your case number more than anything else, right? So have a look at that. DV 2020 and 2021, I said at the beginning of the video, there's no news on that. Should we expect more 2NLs this month for the embassies that haven't sent any? Yes, 2NLs are not finished for April scheduling. They won't be finished until later on in the week, because we've still got some of February, not very much, but we've got some of February still to happen. And 2NLs can also be sent on like the 1st, 2nd, 3rd of the month, immediately after the end of the month as well. So I suspect that we'll see more interviews being scheduled on Monday and Tuesday, perhaps Wednesday. We'll see. Fingers crossed. But I don't think we're done with April interviews yet. No. Does a USA driving license qualify as an identification document for a joint sponsor? Yes, it does. 2020, we talked about, is it possible to reach 25K for the new bulletin? 25K for what? You have to be clear about the region for a start, right? When you don't give me a region, it gives me nothing, right? Do you mean in Asia? Do you mean in EU? Be clear, please. My case is 9K. Can I predict for June? Again, no region, no prediction, and an angel dies, right? So an angel will be killed now because you gave me a case number without your region. That's my rule. I've been applying from Africa for over 4 years and still not lucky enough. What am I doing wrong? You're not doing anything wrong, Raymond. What you have to understand is that the lottery has a chance of selection of 1 in 100 or 1 in 200. It's something in that range. So what that means is, since you can only apply once a year, if there's a 1 in 100 chance, that means you could apply for 100 years and only be selected one time. So it's a once in 100 year chance, right? This is not a plan. It's a lottery. So you've been trying 4 years. Big deal, right? That's not very many out of 100 years or 200 years, right? Not everybody wins at this. It's a lottery. It's a random draw. So all you have to do is just keep trying, but you may never win. That's the reality. Lots of people, far more people than enter, will not win. There were 25 million entries last year. So 25 million people entered and 140,000 were selected, and 55,000 of those will get a visa, right? So you do the math, 55,000 out of 25 million, right? That's your odds, okay? My case is SA 2280 in Ecuador. Got my TNL a week ago, but I have to wait some days to confirm the performance at the embassy. Yes, absolutely, Andres. That's exactly what you have to do. People often contact me after they've got their 2NL. It says in the 2NL, wait a few days before you register on the online site. And people get their 2NL and immediately start emailing me saying that the system doesn't know anything about them. So they've ignored the instructions to wait a few days. But Andres, you've obviously listened or read to that. So well done. You understand that you have to wait a few days, which is fine. Okay. What's the expectation for case number 21 AF in Addis? That should be okay. If we see Addis continue to schedule at the pace they did this month, then you should be okay at 21K. We'll see, right? There's always going to be a risk. I can't guarantee you that they're going to continue on that pace, but hopefully they will. Okay. I'm a fashion designer. Does it qualify me to apply for the DV lottery? No, not by itself, unless you're extremely famous. If you are a fashion designer, for example, you are a designer and you have a whole manufacturing and design company, and essentially, therefore, you're the CEO, or you're the main producer of a company, then you're an entrepreneur who is running a business, and you're a CEO, you're an executive, you're paying payroll, perhaps, you're doing accounts, perhaps, you're doing all these other things. That's taken a little bit differently to you being a designer and maybe once in a while selling a design, a dress or a suit or whatever to a friend, right? The first example I gave may qualify. The second example doesn't. That's a hobby. right? Because you're making almost no money. So it really depends how successful a designer you are. You know, it's a hard case to make unless you've got a real track history showing that you've got an actual business that you're running and that business is providing you with a full income, right? So if your name is Gucci and you're that sort of designer, then you'll probably be fine. But other than that, you know, you've got to prove that your designer work is going to sustain you. That's the thing. T7 Entertainment, hybrid, a military musician who qualified with the job title musician and singer, according to the ONET. Am I good to go without education cert? If yes, what are the necessary documents to prepare for interview? I think I've talked about this one before, perhaps, maybe not you, perhaps, but I've had this military musician thing before. You'd have to look it up on ONET. I haven't looked that one up that I can remember. You know, there's a couple of things about that, right? So in the military, there are ranks, right? There's soldiers and there's, I don't know, there's corporals and there's sergeants and there's officers, right? In general, they're looking for some level of supervisor. So it would be a sergeant or an officer or something, that sort of level. If you're a run-of-the-mill soldier who is playing as a musician or is working as a musician in the military, you're just a run-of-the-mill one, then that's probably not suitable as a rank in the military, right? And then if you're a musician, well, you're not really a musician that's getting paid for your music. You're a soldier that's getting paid to be a soldier that produces music, right? And so it's a bit of a sticky one unless your military rank is high enough to show, because you're a supervisor, a leader, you know, a manager of people, right? That's how I would see it, but feel free to disagree, right? Can a DV lottery winners just come to visit for a day and then return to the US 7 months later? Yes, they can do that. On the first day when you enter the US, you become a green card holder, right? So when you go to the embassy, they give you a passport, they give you a visa, which is a one-time use immigrant visa. You then travel to the US and you're processed. There's no questions or anything else like that. You're going to be processed and you'll become a green card holder. You could stay at the airport, get back on the next plane back to your home country. There's no harm in that, right? You're allowed to do that. And then you can be out of the country for up to 6 months with no problem. And up to 12 months is also okay, but you may get a little bit more questioning up to 12 months. But it is quite normal that people enter the USA, become a lawful permanent resident, a green card holder, and then maybe spend a couple of weeks looking around at areas where they might like to live, maybe making some contacts, maybe open a bank account, that sort of thing. Then they go home to their home country to sell the house, sell the car, you know, and make plans to go back to America at some later point. A lot of people do that, okay? What's the expectation for AF23K in Ghana? It's going to be tough. It's very risky. You might be okay, but we're not seeing any activity from Accra Embassy in terms of scheduling. So, you know, that is a problem. Can you predict when Nepal AS9000 will get current? No, but you can just as easily, right? I'm not going to do a sort of a precise prediction for you, but just use some common sense. Have a look at the numbers that it's at right now and think about it, right? You don't need me to predict these things. That's just a game, right? What's the chances from applying from China? From China is no problem. It doesn't matter where you're applying from. It depends where you're born, and you know which country you're charging to. And so, if you're from China, you were born in China, and you're not married to someone from another country, for example, then you're probably not eligible to enter the lottery because China is excluded. Okay, so there you go. When will Green Card last year applicants results? When will it be out? Which month for 2025? Oh, okay. So for DV25, the results are out in May. early May. I think it's May 6th or 7th. Okay. Any hope for 2NLs within this month for those embassies that haven't sent any? Yes, already answered that. What chances do you have? AF 55K in Nairobi. You should be okay. You should be okay. Okay. According to your prediction, how many people can be scheduled this year, and which cases are high in every region? Okay, so how many people will be scheduled globally? Will be about 70,000 people will be scheduled, which is roughly about 35,000 2NLs, roughly. Okay. Last year they scheduled about 75,000, but then they had to cancel a bunch of interviews at the last minute. And I don't want to see them scheduling 75,000 people. That's too many. That causes problems, right? So about 70,000 is the right number. 70, 71,000, something like that. In terms of case numbers, which case numbers in each region, I created a series of videos about 4 or 5 weeks ago where I've given a complete explanation of the number ranges that I think are relatively safe mathematically within each region, right? Now, I suggest you have a look at those. I don't want to just rattle off the numbers because you'll misunderstand the context of what I'm saying in the numbers. The predictions for numbers are not like 23,301. You can't be that precise because you don't know what people are doing. So there is a range of a prediction range like that, and then a sort of a finer range somewhere in the middle of that, right? So it's and that's explained in each of my videos for each of the regions. And I don't want to just give you one of the numbers in that range because that's going to mislead you. I would rather you look at the video, listen carefully to what you're being told, and decide, whether you agree with it or not. Nothing I say will change the process, right? So you're free to disagree with anything I say, and people often do, although they're usually wrong. AF 10K submitted in June, transferred and resubmitted in August, but my case is still not been processed. What should have been the problem, and should I be worried? Okay, you say it's not processed yet. So firstly, you have to think about which embassy you're at. Like if you're at Addis Ababa embassy, for example, you've not been scheduled because of Addis, not because of your case, right? So have you checked that your DS-260 has been processed? You could check on that. I would have thought it would have been processed by now, but not every case submitted in June would have been processed by now. There are some people whose DS-260s needs longer to process. So that happens sometimes. It's just the way the process works. Okay, not every case processes at the same time. Okay. What happens to someone who lists a child in the entry but not in the DS-260? What are the rules about this? It depends why you listed the child in the entry and then not on the DS-260. If you failed to list the child in the DS-260 as your own child, then you should unlock the DS-260 and list the child. It's your child, right? If what happened was you added a child in the entry that is not your child, then that can cause disqualification. So the rules are very clear, and they state them on the entry that if you fail to include a derivative that should have been included, or you add a derivative that should not have been included, either way can get you disqualified. Well, actually, one way will 100% get you disqualified, and that's missing a derivative off your entry. 100% of the time, that disqualifies you. But if you add a child or a spouse that you really shouldn't have done, right, then that might disqualify you. It depends. I can't really give you a better answer than that, Mimi, because you're not giving me any more detail to work on. I have nearly 13K case number from Nepal. In which month my second letter comes? June or July probably is when your second letter will come. You'll probably have an interview in August or September. That's probably what will happen to you. Okay. Hi, Britt. How is Ankara Embassy doing? Badly is the answer. Is there any chance to get an interview before June for AS 12,000? It's getting very, very late. So in Ankara, probably not is the answer, right? Ankara is very delayed, very backlogged. I did an analysis of this for someone the other day, but it's clear that they are at least 3 months backlogged. And so what that means is, and they've just scheduled April, right? So that means that you probably won't get scheduled in May, June, or July. And if you're an Iranian being scheduled for an interview in August or September, you've got very high risk, because most Iranians get additional background checks after the interview. And for a lot of them, there just wouldn't be enough time if they're interviewing in August or September. So your risk is going up dramatically, even if you get scheduled, which right now is risky. So even if you get scheduled, if you're an Iranian, you're highly at risk right now, because it's just, you're not going to be interviewed in time, right? So you're going to have to think about that very carefully. If you do get a 2NL, you need to know whether you want to risk those fees or not, because you'll pay the fees even if there is not enough time to process your case. You pay the fees and you'll lose the fees. So so you need to decide that. Okay. In your video for Europe SEAC data analysis, you predict 31,000 to 42,000. Do you now think the numbers might be lower after March visa bulletin, considering it's 17.5K? How's Bulgaria doing? Right. So the annual numbers, the numbers that I put in the SEAC data analysis videos for each of the regions, they're end numbers, right? So think of that as being the capacity, the theoretical capacity of the system. That's like saying, here's a bucket. How big is the bucket? And I'm telling you the bucket is a 5-gallon bucket. That's what that analysis video is doing. It's telling you the capacity. Now, that doesn't mean anything about the pace at which you fill that 5-gallon bucket with water. You can fill it fast. You can fill it slow, right? You may not even fill it. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I'm telling you the capacity, and that doesn't guarantee that they're going to give those numbers, because they may not fill the bucket, right? So you need to understand that there's a difference between that. So a visa bulletin being a bit slow doesn't really change the capacity of the bucket. Pouring the water slowly into the bucket doesn't change the capacity of the bucket, right? And you can be pouring the water slowly 1 month, and then you can speed up the next month, right? Again, doesn't make any difference to the size of the bucket. Okay, I'm hoping that's clear. Is it possible that one can do the interview before the medical due to some circumstances beyond control? It is possible. I've known people do that, and that's fine in some countries. There are some countries where that won't be allowed. If in your country there is an organization called IOM who control the medical interviews and that sort of thing, they won't allow the interview to go ahead unless you've completed the medical, which is entirely wrong in my opinion. The IOM have got nothing to do with this process. They should not be making that sort of decision. I don't know why that's allowed to happen, but it does happen. And so there are some cases like that, and there might be some other countries where they would cancel your interview if your medical is not ready in time. Okay, but there are other countries where you could do that. You could attend the interview, and then you'll be on 221G until the medical results are available. Okay. Okay. I have 57XX case number. I'm waiting interview from Ankara. Do you think I can get the mail in March for May? Probably. Although you didn't give me the region, but I'm going to assume that that's an EU number. I almost killed an angel because of you. But yeah, it's probably going to be okay. They're about at that point. They're just under your number right now, so you should be okay. SA29XX in risk, not so much. No, they're pretty close to that now, right? South America. So you should be okay. Thank you so much for the information you provide. I'm from Uganda, case number 28,000, and I got my 2NL. Good. Do I have to do anything to confirm my interview before the actual date? In most embassies, they give you instructions to go to an online courier website, something like USA Travel Docs, right? Something like that. They're different systems throughout the world, but quite a few of the embassies use a system called USA Travel Docs, I think it is, and you're supposed to register with that company at least a few days after you've received the 2NL. Don't do it the day of receiving the 2NL. Don't do it the next day or the next day. Wait maybe a week and then register, right? And all you're trying to do is just register an account. You're not trying to get another appointment. You already have your appointment, right? So you're just trying to register with the courier to have an account. That's all. But yes, that's the only other thing you have to do. You also have to book your medical, of course. If you've got your 2NL, it's up to you to book your medical, right? So go ahead and do that. Bottom line, read the instructions. This is all made clear in the instructions, right? So the fact that you're asking that question is a bit scary. You need to go and read the instructions more than anything else, okay? Okay. AOS package has been received. I got the text from USCIS. How will I know which is my field office and NBC? Well, they'll write to you, and they'll say that, you know, after some period of time, they'll say the case has been assigned to this field office. You probably already know which one it's going to be, right? It's normally one in the city closest to you. But yes, you'll find out in due course. It takes a bit of time for this AOS process. Just be patient, and all will be revealed. Okay. I hope you're doing well. I got my 2NL and watched your video on how to fill the affidavit of support, I-134. So beside that form, what my documents my sponsor should provide me? Get them to provide the following documents: either a 1040 or a W-2 document, which is, they're both annual reports of income. One is a tax filing and the other is a document that comes from your job, right? So either of those would be okay. 1040 is better. That's a tax report, right? They should have photo ID, like a driver's license, that sort of thing. And they should also give you up-to-date pay slips, because depending on when you interview, the tax report from last year might be quite out of date, right? So you want something that's a bit more up-to-date. So an up-to-date pay slip would be good. A pay slip is something that every employee receives when they get paid. They get a statement, if you like, of how much money they earned, how much taxes they paid, and that sort of thing. And usually on that pay slip, it says your income year to date, the year to date number. Okay, so that's a good thing to provide. Well done, good job. Please, for DV 2025, my photo meet all the requirements, but my wife and children didn't meet the requirements. Any chance for me to be selected? If they didn't meet the requirements in a dramatic way, then your case will be disqualified. And even if you were selected, you would become a whole. Let's say you're case number 1, right? But they look at your photo and they look at the photos of your derivatives, and the photos of the derivatives are wrong, technically wrong, then they'll disqualify the whole case and you'll become a whole, right? So it depends how bad you did the photos, frankly. Okay. What do I expect from the next Asia bulletin? Will it be high? I don't think it'll be that high. I don't have a number in mind. Case number 315X from Addis. Can I have a chance for interview schedule? You're at risk for sure. You need to see Addis start issuing between 150 and 250 interviews per month, which is a big step from where they're at. I think they did 144 or something this month. So you need to see an increase in pace. And if that happens, I mean, certainly no less than 144. They mustn't go backwards, right? But, you know, maybe in the 150 to 200 range, you might be okay. You know, you'll have to wait and see. Is it possible to reach 25K in new bulletin for EU? It's possible. I'm not making that prediction, but it's possible. We'll see. It's only a few days away, right? Hi, Simon. My brother case is AS 15800 from Asia region. Well, he has a chance. He has a chance. He might have a chance, but it's a little bit of a high case number, so it's going to be, a little bit late before he gets to know, right? I crash a lot. That's a good name. I got my visa, but I won't be able to move until a few months. But I need to visit US in a month. I don't have US address to send the green card until after the end of the year. Can I delay that? You can delay it by not paying the fee, right? Now, I don't suggest you do that for very long. Not until by the end of the year. The end of the year is late. But yes, you can delay them sending the card. But they will send the card to the address you've already given in the DS260 unless you change it. So if I were you, a better idea would be to find someone who you can trust to have the card sent to them, and then make that change when you enter the US on your activation trip. Make that, get the immigration officer to make that change, right? And then you'll get the social security number and the green card. They'll be sent on separate occasions, but you'll have both of those things. And those things will go to that address on the DS260 unless you make that change at the arrival airport, right? The port of entry. Okay, so get on with that. Make sure you do that. Okay. Please, sir, what are the future prospects for the embassy in Ghana? I don't know what the future prospects are. I can't read the future. I don't have any sort of special powers to see the future. I'm worried about Ghana. I see you're worried about Ghana. It's horrible. They shouldn't be performing like that. But I don't know if they're going to change and if they're going to change how they're working. So we'll have to wait and see. I filled out half of DS260 form, but I did not submit it so far. That's okay. They'll give you half a green card. I still have 1 year with my F1 visa. Can I go back to study a master in USA so I can readjust my status? What are you doing? I don't understand what you're doing, Islam. You have to decide whether you want the green card or not, right? If you do, you don't have to process the DS260. You could maybe do adjustment of status when you go back on your F1 visa, but you need to get off your ass and make that decision, right? Because if you leave it until the summer and you don't submit your I-485 paperwork until then, that's leaving it very, very late. So if I were you, I would submit the DS260 and try and process now before you leave for the States. And, to be honest, you're screwing it up. Like, you're getting them into a mess. So you need to make a decision now and go down adjustment of status path or consular processing path, but make your mind up and start one or the other. Because right now, all you're doing is just increasing the chances of losing everything. That's basically what you're doing right now. Yeah, and your case number is 51K, and you're worried because the performance of the embassy in Cairo. Yeah, I mean, you've got loads of reasons to be worried. So the last thing you need to do is delay things. So don't leave it until the summer. Can you not re-enter on your F1 earlier so that you can file the I-485 earlier? Make a decent plan. It's not because adjustment of status doesn't happen overnight, right? What about 34 case number in Russia? Has a chance, but it's also got some risk. It's not, it's not a certain chance by any means. It's got some risk. Okay. My case number is Asia 33K. To be honest, I lost hope based on the numbers so far. Agree. Yes, I agree. That's probably too high a number. Never say never. Never give up hope. But at the same time, there's just no reason why they're going to go that far. There's too many selectees, and so I can't see any good reason why they would go to 33,000. It doesn't make any sense. Okay. My name is One's from Kenya. I was selected in last lot 23. My case number is 47K. What happened with my case since I was never called for interview? How die it goes? Okay. If you were selected in DV 2023, that year is over. There's nothing more you can do about your case. They issued all of the visas, right? but they had over-selected the number of people selected, and so some people lost out. And you were one of the people that lost out. So that's what happened, I'm afraid. What happens if one doesn't have any of the required vaccines? The clue is in the word required. If they're required, what does that suggest to you? Does that mean they're optional? No, they're required. So if you don't have one of the required vaccines, that's a problem, right? Do they administer them at the medical? They can do. Yeah, they can do that. Sometimes you're better off getting them done beforehand, but sometimes they can do them at the medical. And if so, what happens if the IOM doesn't have those? Do you need to find them by yourself? So I suggest you discuss this with IOM to figure out whether they can give you all of the required vaccines or not. Typically, the physician that you have your medical with will be able to administer those extra vaccines, but you need to do that as early as possible because you might need a course of vaccines, right? I don't know what you're missing, so I'm not going to speak in detail, but you might need several vaccines in order to become qualified. So look into this. This is an important thing. The clue, again, is required vaccines, right? You require some. Okay, let's skip through. Let's see if we can find some interesting questions here. Lots of questions from Ghana. What's the fate of mistakes on age when I fill DV and corrected it in the DS260? It's normally fine. If you've made a genuine error on the DV entry, and you put your date of birth wrong by maybe a year or a day or a month or whatever, as long as you correct it in the DS260, you're normally okay. It's not really a problem. Okay. Okay. Lots of questions about what do I think about Europe in the next visa bulletin? What do I think about Cairo? Over and over again, these questions. But, I'm not going to try and predict what the next visa bulletin will do in any of the regions. We just have to wait and see. We will see the next visa bulletin in about 2 weeks' time at most, right? So why are we going to start trying to predict? I mean, it's just a couple of weeks. Just wait for that. Is the omission of a middle name during the application pardonable, or that's a grounds for disqualification? If you omitted the name in the DV entry, but you fix it in the DS260, you're normally okay. Okay, it would be quite unusual to get disqualified for that. Okay. What about EU 11K for Ankara? We have to see Ankara doing better than they have been up to now. It's quite worrying that they are so backlogged. In any scenario, it would be hard to imagine you wouldn't get a chance with EU 11K, but they're so backlogged right now. I don't know what they intend to do in the coming months, right? That's the difficulty. I'm the one who wrote on your website about KCC not responding to my emails. Can KCC block or filter a certain case number from getting back response? I don't email them much, and I only ask for DS unlock. Ella, generally speaking, they will answer you as long as you form the email correctly. You have to include on the email your full name, right? Complete name, your complete case number. It has to have the year, the region, and the leading zero. So you'd have 2024 AF 00001234 or 12345, whatever it is. You have to have the whole thing, right? And then the date of birth has to be there in American format, which is month/day/4-digit year, right? You've got to have those three pieces of information. If you don't have those, they may not respond to you. So just try again. I honestly don't know why you would not get a response if you've got those details on there. And then do understand also that sometimes they email back, but your email system might send that email response to a spam or a trash folder. So look in those spam and trash folders. Okay. I've only asked for the DS260 to unlock to add my wife. We newly got happily married as you advised. Good. After a few days, I asked again for my DS260 to be unlocked because then we needed to correct something. That's it. Oh, you're just telling me. Okay, so that's fine. That's fine. Right, there's no problem with that. Good afternoon, Mr. Simon. I need to know what possibilities there are for my case SA 4000 something from Cuba. Right, well, so and you haven't really given me much of a chance to answer this. So 4001 would have some chance. 4999 would have much less chance, right? So so I don't know. I don't know specifically. I can't make a prediction specifically on that. You'll have to wait and see, I'm afraid, because you haven't given me enough information. How many times can the entry status be checked and how long? Okay, when you check the entry, you can check as many times as you like, but not selected will always say not selected, right? I mean, it's not going to change. The only caveat to that is in some years they have a second draw, but there's certainly no second draw in DV 2024. In DV 2025, we'll have to wait and see what happens, how many people they select in the first draw. Okay. Do you think Asia will chance to current for DV 2024? Absolutely not. I don't know how more clearly I can say this. There are too many selectees. It didn't go. So look, it didn't go current last year, right? And now they've added a lot more selectees this year. There are more people this year, and already last year there were too many people. So if there were too many last year and they've added some, why would it go current and make all of those people current? They won't. That's the answer. That's not going to happen. This shouldn't be surprising, really. There's really no regions that have a possibility of going current. I originally said that Africa might go current. That's not going to happen now. The only reason that Africa might have gone current is if significant number of embassies were not behaving. And whilst we have some misbehaving embassies in Africa, we also have Nairobi, which is doing a lot previous couple of years. And so that's going to make a very big difference, just Nairobi on itself, right? So it's not likely that Africa can go current. Now, if we see Cairo not working and we see Casablanca not working, maybe we see Algeria, not working or something. If those embassies stopped working, then yes, that would give us more chance for Africa to go towards current or higher case numbers. But outside of that, there's no other region that's going to go wrong like that, right? So, definitely not Asia. Definitely not. I mean, it just should be very obvious. What do you think of EU 28600 in Bulgaria? Looks good. The Bulgarian embassy, I haven't checked it recently. Have a look at it. Have a look and see how backlogged it is. I've explained in a video how to look at an embassy. So have a look at some of my older videos. AF183. Why have no interviews in this case? I don't know. You've given me zero information, such as, dear me, such as which embassy you're at or anything like that. So I have no idea why you have no interview for that case, because you've given me no information. I have two passports, one from ineligible country and the other from an eligible country. I'm in Canada with that ineligible passport for DV lottery. Can I use that eligibility passport to apply for DV26 lottery in Canada? You can have 73 different passports. None of them make any difference. The passports are not important. How many passports you've got is not important. What's important is where you were born. And you were born one time, even if you've got 73 passports. One time you were born, right? And you were only born in one country. And that's the country that you're eligible to apply under. Because it's to do with not your citizenship, not your passports, but your country of birth, right? And the only exceptions to that are where you're born in a country which is ineligible, but your parents were only there temporarily, and there might be an exception for you in that case. Or you're you were born in an ineligible country, but you're married to someone from an eligible country, and therefore you can apply through their country. That's it. Nothing to do with the number of passports you've got or all that stuff you were just telling me. I wanted to ask you, if you got a sperm donor to produce your children, how do you support them during the DV lottery interview? What? If you got a sperm donor, okay. So you're a woman, right? If you got a sperm donor, you're still biologically your child, right? I mean, and whether it's biologically your child or not, if that was some sort of IVF process with a donor mother and a donor father, it doesn't matter. Legally, that's your child as well, right? So you can include any child that is your biological child, your legal child, meaning through adoption or similar process, or a stepchild, right? And definitely one obtained through an IVF process or a sperm donor or anything like that. That's definitely included, right? So, so you're absolutely fine. Just don't even have. That's your private business. You don't need to discuss that with how you became pregnant. You don't need to discuss with with the consular officer. That's nothing to do with that, right? You've got a birth certificate. That's it. That's all you need. Mimi says there's a lady in a group who wrote the child in the entry but did not add the child in the DS260 because it's just a stepchild from an unmarried, separated relationship. They should be. They need to unlock their DS260. That woman needs to unlock and add the child to her DS260. Whether or not she plans to take the child is not the point. The point is that is her child, right? It's a stepchild. You're legally required to list that child, right? Now, she doesn't have to create a DS260 for that child if she's not planning to take that child. Okay. Okay. Couple more questions, then we'll call it a day, I think, right? Excuse me. Let's say I have my education and other documents in Hungarian, but my interview will be in London. Do I need to officially translate them? Yes, you do, Levante. So the rule about that is that documents need to be either in English, wherever you are in the world, right, or in the official language that is the official language in the location where you're going to interview, right? So your Hungarian documents would need to be translated to either English or German. Let's say if you were interviewing in Frankfurt, right? So you'd have them translated to either German or English would be accepted. English is always accepted, right? So since you're talking about interviewing in London, you have to have them translated into English. That's your only choice because you're interviewing in London, right? But yes, you have to have all of those documents. Any other important document, just have it translated. Okay. Sometimes, by the way, in Europe in particular, there'll be like a birth certificate or some document like that, which is in a foreign language, non-English, but has a sort of a numbered sort of translation as part of the official format. It's just there automatically. My wife's birth certificate from Spain, for example, had that. In that case, you don't need to have that document translated because the document has already got an official translation embedded in it, right? So that's okay. Okay. This month, Ankara didn't give several interview between 47 and 4,800, but they gave interview until 5,000. And do you think what could be the reason of that? You're asking why did they skip the numbers between 4,700 and 4,800, and then did give interviews between 4,800 and 5,000? Well, I don't know if there were case numbers between 4,700 and 4,800, and I don't know whether those cases had their DS260 processed in that range. But there's no real reason why they would just say, "Oh, I've got a good idea. I'm scheduling interviews, but I'm going to ignore this number range between 4,700 and 4,800. I'm going to schedule cases before that and after that because it would be more fun." Right? Like, why would they do that? Let's think logically. What would be the reason? The only logical reason is that there were no cases ready for scheduling within that number range. So let's not try and assign any other sort of, um, logical reason for that, because there is none. Okay. Okay. What when both couple win? Also, is it allowed to modify and use the previous year's photo? Second question first. No, don't reuse the previous year's photo. Don't modify the photo, right? Shouldn't be doing either of those things. What happens when both couple win? Let's say a husband and wife both enter and both of them win. What should they do? Well, they can process both cases if they want. They can submit DS-260s for both cases and see which one becomes current first. They can do that. They can also decide which case to process based on who has the most likely chance of meeting the requirements for education. They can do it either way, but they can choose which case to process on, or process both. But obviously, the first case that gets processed is the winner, right? That one case will cover both of them. Okay. Okay. Let's see if I can find one more good question. Okay. A Sudanese person had his interview in Malaysia a few days ago. He claims the consular officer asked about a high school diploma. Then, using Google, she had asked him about chemistry, and then denied the visa. Okay, let's dig into that a little bit. So, a Sudanese person probably has very limited paperwork to support their case, right? There's been a number of difficulties in Sudan over the years. A lot of the paperwork is either missing or is easily obtainable through fraudulent means. And therefore, almost no documentation is considered trustworthy from Sudanese applications, right? So that's the first problem. That has a natural risk attached to it, that the consular officer is going to mistrust that person, right? Now, let's say someone then sits in front of the CO and says, yeah, I went through school, I got this grade and that grade, and I'm really smart, and I passed all of my education, but I've got no paperwork to support that. You just have to trust me, right? And I was really good at chemistry. Now, they're not supposed to administer any test in order to ascertain someone's education level. It literally says that they must not administer either a written or an oral test of any form to ascertain their education results. However, they are entitled to try and ascertain whether the documents being given are genuine or not, right? And so there's a little bit of a mix-up between two rules. One says they can look particularly at a Sudanese person's documents and try and ascertain if they're true. And the other rule says that they shouldn't be administering a test. And so they might, frankly, sometimes make a mistake, a technical mistake, and administer a test in what they think is good faith, and then find the results dissatisfactory. But what that basically means is that they don't trust the person. And in the case where they don't trust the person, without any good, valid documents to back it up, they are entitled to refuse that case. And the consular officer's decision is not appealable. So, as sad as it is, there's probably no way around that. There's no way to fix it, is probably the reality. So, is it a true story you've heard? I don't know. But it is possible, and there's parts of it that sound genuine, frankly. Okay, last question then, just because I'm just seeing this one from the DV chart website. What is the 2NL date for the CN that are current right now? And the status is MVC. Will it change, update once receiving the 2NL or after interview? Okay. The DV chart website is updated once a week through an extract that Zarthisius does once a week on a Friday. And what he does is when he sees that there's a case that has received a 2NL in that previous week, he stamps the 2NL date as being that Friday's extraction date, right? And so later, when we're looking at the file, we can see when that case roughly got the 2NL. It won't be exactly accurate because it depends. It might have come on the Monday or the Tuesday or whatever, but by the Friday when Xarthisius extracted that 2NL was then there. So he just marks it as that date, right? And so that's what it means, and it's useful to know, roughly speaking, when that case became got the 2NL, roughly, right? Okay, good. All right. Well, I think we'll call that a day. I hope that this live session was useful for you. I hope your question was answered. I've tried to answer as many questions as I could. So I hope that was good for you. Anyway, if you do like this video and if you like these live Q&As, please give me a thumbs up on the video. Just let me know that you like it. And please do make sure you're subscribed to the channel. All right. I'd be grateful. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining me. Bye-bye now.